The Winter Tree by Georgina Lewis. Read by Jill Greenacre. Chapter 13. The Rocks. We spent the week before Christmas decorating the little room. David brought a tiny tree home from the shop, and Hester and I hung it with small paper chains that we had made out of coloured magazine pages. I went down to Woolworths and brought back some tinsel and a few glass balls, and we hung those on the tree as well. David brought home some holly, and we pinned it round the room in little bunches with drawing pins stuck in the picture rail. We put our few small parcels round the tree, 2 or 3 of theirs and the ones I'd brought from home. The postman brought a few cards now and then, one from David's parents and one from his aunt in Bodmin, the latter rather a formal one of a severe wintry scene, and the terse words, "Happy Christmas from Aunt Dorothy to David and Hester," inside. Hester put it aside with a defensive glint in her eye. I wondered about that look. There were a few cards from home, mostly made by Thomas, but signed by everyone. There was also a card from Veronica Brays, "To Dave and Hester, all my love, Veronica," and a picture on the front of candles and a Bible lying open on an altar with a bunch of snow-covered mistletoe, which seemed an odd combination. Hester was delighted with all the ones from home. "Look, Abby," she said, holding up a large card. "Here's one from Uncle Garfield. Do look, it's very clever." Thomas had drawn a fat robin perched upon a bubbling wine jar. The ferment within the jar foamed up and down to form the letters Merry Christmas, and the inside said, "Merry Christmas to you," in Father's spidery handwriting. "There's one from Lissy too," she said eagerly. "Put them up on the string, David, then we can see them properly." They never seemed to want to go out. Now and again David went off somewhere in the evening. Each morning he went off to work, and each afternoon he returned at precisely the same time. I couldn't persuade Hester to go out at all, not even for a walk. Neither of them appeared to have any contact with the people in the houses on either side, and nobody except the nurse called in to see them. Every other morning I went down the hill with Hester's basket to the shops for food, spending some of her money and some of my own, and David brought vegetables home at the end of the day. I once called at the greengrocer's where he worked, serving great earthy mounds of brown potatoes and flame-coloured carrots, with a streaked white apron round his middle and a capable air. We planned each day's meals in great detail, and when he came home, David smiled and enjoyed our cooking, and I began to feel quite fond of him. Even his overwhelming sincerity became less of a strain. Quite often in the evenings he would go off ringing somewhere, while Hester and I sat round the little fire and talked about home. Once he came back and said he'd seen Perrin, and his face glowed all that evening, so I knew they'd had their chat, and he was reassured. Hester was very large now, and I judged, without much experience in such matters, near to her time. The nurse came every few days to see her and tell her what to get ready and what to look for to know that the whole process had begun. Hester would listen with a look of slight blankness upon her face and nod in appropriate places, as if it was really nothing to do with her, but that she was paying attention out of politeness. When the nurse had gone off on her bicycle, she would close the door with relief and say something like, "Well, that's that for a bit longer, thank goodness," as if the whole subject was really rather a nuisance. I once asked her whether the thought of labour still frightened her, but she turned upon me a gaze of such curious blankness, as if I'd mentioned something indelicate or peculiar, that I never asked again. The whole subject of the birth seemed so extraordinarily trivial to her, so I did wonder sometimes whether she realised what was about to happen to her. 2 days before Christmas, I managed to get her to show me the things in their bedroom that she'd got for the baby. To my astonishment, the nurse's list was complete. "Why, Hester," I said, "you must have been ready for months." "Oh, yes," she said carelessly. "I had all this stuff ready last summer. A lot of it was given to me, and Auntie Susan sent all the clothes and nappies and things. I think a lot of it was yours when you were little. I should think there are at least 20 vests, counting the new ones. I could have twins without any worry." Then she said quickly, "Come on, we can't stand here looking at all this stuff all day. We've got that pie to make." She pulled me out of the room and closed the door on it all. The piles of nappies and faded bibs and faintly familiar rompers and little threadbare dresses, and dragged me downstairs to make pastry. dismissing my anxious questions about a cot with, "Oh, don't worry, you can sleep in a drawer." She turned to the far more important business of making apple pie. But a little later that afternoon, I found her in their bedroom, turning Joseph's wooden rattle over and over in her hands, and saying to herself in a strange, low voice, "Oh God of God." And the sing-song quality I loved to hear was gone. But when she turned and saw me, she put it down hurriedly, and her smile was instant. She quickly covered it all over with the curtain she used as a dust sheet, and suggested making scones for tea. So we went down to the kitchen, and while she soured the milk with lemon juice and I collected flour, salt and margarine, she chattered on about the jam we would have to go with them. "Shall we open the plum this time, Abby? I dearly love the plum. It has all those lovely great lumps of purple swimming about in it, doesn't it? Not the raspberry, that's a bit pippy for scones, and the strawberry ought to be saved because there aren't so many jars of it. I want to save it for after Christmas in case anyone comes to tea. I should think the plum would be exactly right, Abby, wouldn't you? Yes, I think we ought to have the plum." Which all seemed an oddly elaborate conversation, just for jam. She still ate very little. She tasted a few crumbs of everything we made with childlike pleasure, like a bird pecking at seeds, but she never seemed hungry. She cooked huge meals for David, but ate nothing of them herself, and we always had porridge for breakfast. "I've never known such a one for porridge," David said one morning. "She's always the same, Abigail, is all she ever really wants to eat. Was she like this at home?" "Oh, Hester always did love porridge," I told him. "It was all she would ever eat at one time, especially when she was little." "Well, not me," he said, standing up. "I can't really stand the stuff. You're a good cook, Abigail, I must say. That was a remarkably good omelette. Finish yours up, Hester. You've got the baby to think of now." She pushed at her small piece with a fork. "Really, I've had quite enough already." "Oh, come on, Hester. You've had nothing. I must be off now or I'll be late, and I mustn't be late. Make her eat it up, Abigail, won't you? She seems to listen to what you say." I wished he'd call me Abby. It would have made me feel so much more comfortable. "Promise me you'll eat it, Hester. Come on now, no cheating. I want that son of mine well covered when he arrives. And another bit, Hester. Look, it's nearly gone now. I must say you girls can certainly cook." Hester pushed her plate away. "We had a good teacher, didn't we, Abby? Auntie loves to cook and feed people." "Oh, yes," I said, laughing. "Food is her one great passion." David looked up suddenly. After I'd said it, I felt vaguely embarrassed. It seemed somehow out of place to talk of passion in front of him, even if only of the culinary kind. He was so passionless. Later, when he had gone to work, and Hester and I were washing up a few plates and dishes in the scullery, she looked at me thoughtfully and said, "I wish I was like you, Abby." "Like me?" I said, astonished. "Why, whatever for?" She put her head on one side, like a bird, and surveyed me. "You're so solid, somehow." I laughed in mock offence. "I'm not that fat," I said indignantly. "Just slightly over normal, mother's build." "No," she said, "I didn't mean that. I didn't mean your proportions. I meant solid and comforting and calm and never very troubled." "You make me sound like a Christmas pudding," I said, "but thanks all the same." "Do you suppose you'll want to get married, Abby?" she asked later, as we sat by the fire cracking nuts to put on the cake when it was done. The late December light came in at the window from the pearly afternoon, soft and cold. We'd lit the fire after dinner. She made a pleasant picture, sitting there on the low chair in front of it, walnuts balanced in a row along the top of her bulging middle, with the flames catching at echoing colours in her hair. I put my walnuts in a saucer, and we threw our empty shells into the fire. They caught light and crackled, and became suddenly alive. "Dear me, I don't know," I said. "Depends if someone wants to marry me first, doesn't it? And if I love him back. Why?" She leaned her head upon the chair back and looked into the fire. "Oh, no reason, really. I just wondered how you felt about marrying, that's all." "Do you recommend it?" I asked lightly, and then at once regretted it. It seemed a question fraught with intrusion, but she didn't seem to notice. She smiled into the flames, more relaxed than I'd seen her for days, and said thoughtfully, "Well, I can't tell you much about the having baby side of it yet. I'll tell you in a month." I felt a slight tension in the air. probably entirely personal, that the other end of babies, the conception end, might come into view. So I said quickly, "I'd like to have babies, that is, if my husband wanted them." "You'd want to be married first, then?" "Oh, of course." She gave a little laugh, and 2 of the walnuts fell off her mound of stomach into the hearth. She said, "Don't sound so offended, dear Abby, you're so shockable. It's part of your solidness." And I was left wondering exactly what she meant. "I don't see myself as too easily shocked, really." "No, you're not. Just beautifully conventional. It's very reassuring." It was as if she'd patted my hand like we did with Mother at home when we wanted to soothe her. "You're really very much like Auntie Susan, you know that, Abby. Auntie without the apron." And we both laughed easily. "If the baby is a girl," Hester mused, "I should want to call it Elizabeth." "After Lizzie?" "Yes, sort of. And it would be easier for you later on." "Easier for me?" I said in surprise. "How do you mean?" She smiled into the fire. "Nothing. Just easier than if it was called Abigail. I'd like it to be called after one of you." "I suppose there's always Thomasina, or Perina, if you run short of ideas," I said. "Although isn't there a fish?" "Yes, a piranha. No, I don't like the sound of that. I don't want a child that might turn round and eat me away." I shuddered. Horrid thought. What if it's a boy? What would you call a boy? She gave me a sudden veiled look, like rocks under cloudy water, that was gone in a moment. She thought for a bit and then said, "I think I'd like to call him after my dear old grandfather in the churchyard at home." I stared at her until I remembered, and then we burst out laughing. "Oh, Hester," I said, "poor baby, Isaac Bartholomew Penkevin, what a name." And when David came in from the shop with a pound of parsnips and a battered cabbage under one arm, we were giggling like schoolgirls. I think, looking back, she seemed almost happier then than I'd ever seen her before.